now. Come on, let's talk about it. Sistership, we got this now. Come on, let's talk about it. Sistership, we got this now. Come on, let's talk about it. We're my sisters, we got this, sisters. You roll with me and I'll roll with ya. We're my sisters, we got this, sisters. You roll with me and I'll roll with ya. Substance, sis, you know we on a mission, no games. Help each other get over some things. Real strength bring change. Cause we've been through the rain. Now it's time to shine like flame. Let's talk about life skills. We building up our quality to right wills. We rolling out of poverty. Love heals. So we become the prodigy of how a sistership could be a really hot commodity. Stand together, we united, hold hands. Support each other dreams and our plans. Doing everything we can. Just to show we understand the power of a friendship, fam. Live life on purpose. Together we learn it. Yeah, let's talk. We don't want to see you hurt, and we here for each other. No matter the color, networking. That's for sure and for certain. Yeah, we on a sistership. Come with us. We on a sistership. Yeah, we on a sistership. Roll with us. We on a sistership. We're my sisters. We got this, sisters. You roll with me and I'll roll with ya. We're my sisters. We got this, sisters. You roll with me and I'll roll with ya. Sistership, we got this now. Come on, let's talk about it. Sistership, we got this now. Come on, let's talk about it. Sistership, we got this now. Come on, let's talk about it. Sistership, we got this now. Come on, let's talk about it. We on a sistership. We on a sistership. We on a sistership and brothership. Hello, happy Sunday, y'all.
Oh, it's pouring outside. We almost had to swim in today.
We were on the road doing the
girl.
I'm telling you, the rain is terrible today. However, we need it, right? We need the weather with the smoke issues that we've been seeing across the board. And Lord, the asthma has been really bad for most folks and things of that nature. But anyways, we're here. So thank the Lord for that. Amen. Amen.
Amen. Amen.
Happy Sunday, everyone. This is the Sistership Network right here every Sunday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Gynesis Radio, GenesisRadio.com. So today is going to be a very interesting topic. And we actually invited DJ Jersey on Gynesis Radio, also part of the brothership, Darren Johnson, to come in and talk with us. We're becoming a famish, what should I say? A famship, right? A family. You call family a famiship. We're coming together, famship, brothers and sisters of all, and with that said, we wanted to come to you today because we have a really, it's an explosive, it's a topic that is so important for us to talk about. But before we go there, I want to make sure we go around the room and make sure we introduce everybody again and again and again, because y'all need to know who's part of this famship right here on the Sistership Network. Hello. We've got Lady K in the house.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's your girl, Lady K. I'm excited to be here today.
Now she talking real low right now, but wait till she get up in there.
Once she get excited,
the volume just go whoop. But we love that about her because she's very passionate, and we all are very passionate. Mm-hmm. Mama C.
Woo, woo. We haven't been live in the studio for a little while, but we're here today, and this topic, revolution, what is it?
Is it time for a revolution?
Is it time for a revolution? At this point in my life, I be getting stuff all twisted. But, thank God I have younger folks with me who kind of get it right, and help untwist it for me. So we're glad you joined us. This is a very important topic, and I hope you call your friends, call your family, everybody listening, call in, share your thoughts, because guess what? It's going to get hotter.
Hotter and hotter and hotter.
Hotter and hotter.
We're going to dry that water out there.
Hello.
And with that said, we have the brothership once again, Darren Johnson. Thank you so much, DJ Jersey.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. Just two things. One, the brothership, we're not dormant. We're just kind of recalibrating because everybody's doing a lot of things. We're in a season for a lot of reasons. So look out for us. We'll be coming together. And the other thing I just wanted to share is just kind of put a preface, because when people hear revolution, they look at it or perceive revolution in different terms.
Right.
Now, we're not talking about violent
No.
Right.
revolution
No,
where there's
right.
insurrection,
Right.
because we also know that, insurrection can be perceived or spun differently. When we talk about revolution, we're talking about a revolution of thought,
Yes.
because revolution defined means revolving, changing.
Absolutely.
So as we migrate into this topic, let's just be cognizant of the true meaning of what we're conveying when we say revolution.
Yeah, so don't y'all go out there talking about the sistership and the brothership, talking about running these
Get some guns.
by blowing stuff up. And look, it's
Right.
not about that. It's not
Exactly.
about that. We are evolved. I'll say we are evolved in thought and how we operate and how we manage and how we look at things and how we want you guys in the audience to really take this to the next level. And it doesn't have to be violence. It doesn't. It's
Absolutely.
not necessary. But there are all means, but we have to just make sure that we're doing things in a more responsible way.
And I think the civil rights movement taught
Mhm.
that you don't have to invoke violence
There you go.
in order to achieve your goals.
Mm-mm.
I think that in this day and age, intelligence
Mhm.
is far greater than any type of violence anyone can wreak on anyone else.
I see we're jumping into it
That's right. That's
real
right.
quick,
So-
real quick.
Hello.
So with that said, you're right. I mean, we're jumping into it because it's necessary for us to get through this. So a couple things we want to call out, right? And the reason why we're having this discussion, a lot of things have been, when we talk about the Supreme Court and some policies and things that they're reverting back and decisions that are being made, and Roe versus Wade, abortion rights, right? Ending affirmative action, weakening the Voting Rights Act. We talk redistricting and things of that nature, giving businesses a license to discriminate. Okay. And saddling students with debt, student loan forgiveness, that being taken now, saying, you know what, we don't want to give students forgiveness and loans, even though we had rates that were astronomical, students who weren't getting the value coming back into the workforce or even getting into the workforce to be able to pay their student loan debt.
Absolutely.
But again, all this said, we are reverting back to the 60s even, and therefore we're running into a situation right now where this revolution, as we call it, and again, of thought and how we operate in that environment, is really about how do we have to educate people, right?
Absolutely.
People need to understand that all these things that are now being come to fruition, this has been going on for quite some time. Sometimes we've kind of taken it as, oh, it's not going to happen to this, and it's not going to happen to
It's not
affirmative
going to
action.
get that bad.
It's not going to get that bad. Guess what? We are here now. So now's the time. Now, I want to quickly just talk about affirmative action for a moment and the argument. So we see DeSantis, and I'll say it because he said it on TV. They're talking about colorblind. We're doing this because, we're colorblind. Well, let's be very clear that colorblind, and let's educate for educational purposes. When a white person says colorblind, and I'm a white person, we're, and I'll talk for some, the assumption is that we're saying, oh, we don't see color as a deterrent or a factor that is going to stop people from seeing Black people or people of color. That we just want to be all fair and equal. However, affirmative action, the reason why it was put in place, let's talk about that, right? When we say colorblind to a person of color, what does that mean to you? Because I want to educate the audience, because I don't think people out there understand when we say colorblind, we're actually telling people we don't see them.
See you. Yeah, I don't see you.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And you don't, which means because I don't see you, you don't matter.
I think colorblind, at least from how it's received for me as a person of color, it kind of is a patronizing term, because through my life experience, I don't see based on my understanding of history, it ever being a colorblind society, because we clearly had through legislation less than 50 years ago segregation that identified people would only have access to certain things as whites only or blacks only. So that in and of itself is a fallacy.
Absolutely,
So until
sure
we can collectively align on when we became a colorblind society, we can't have that discussion from a position of intelligence.
Absolutely.
And that's, I think, for me as a person that's a student of history, kind of gets a little bit agitated with how it was laid out, because from my assessment, the color blind assessment in revoking affirmative action was manufactured, like many things we're seeing in the political environment that we live in.
Yeah, and I mean, again, that educational piece, and again, we're taking this here because you have to educate people. The problem is we are trying to ban books, okay, that's giving you a true reflection of history, and sometimes we don't even have the true reflection of history in our history
Absolutely.
books.
Most times we don't. I mean, I think that this society, which allows itself as the greatest country on the planet, has done everything it can possibly do to keep us blind to the realities. And so they want us to buy into the stories that they want to embellish our lives with. And the more you do that, the more you condition people to believe those stories. So I think it's important. Go ahead.
I was kind of put what you saying, having people believe the story, because I was saying to my concept, because a lot of people, when they hear certain words, right, as we're talking this topic, because based on what someone else said, it is taken and run with it. So it goes back to what Steph was saying, like you really need to take the time to sit down and actually educate yourself. What does this mean? What does this mean for me? Does this affect my family? Like you said, intelligence, you really got to go into that mindset, like, how does this affect me? How does it affect people around me? What exactly is this? So I think a lot of times, before you open your mouth, start piggybacking off of somebody, sit down, read about it, look at all the different arguments, but look at the true meaning and value of it before you start blurting stuff. Because I think sometimes you might make yourself a little uneducated, and it's
Make
not
yourself look like a fool.
Yeah, and
I'll say
I'm
it.
trying to be nice, you know what I'm saying, with my words, you know.
You be nice. I'm gonna be nice, okay? I'm
I'm
gonna
be
be right out
nice
there.
with my words, but I think that's really crucial too. Before again, people start jumping. Just take the time and read and see what is really what, because everything is not what is good as gold. That's the thing. It's not. So it's like, okay, just slow your roll.
Absolutely.
And can I add? I like I said, I'll consider myself an egghead. I've always been one to read and study and try to be, I'll say, an academic authority. What we have to understand is that history has always been doctored or it's been changed. There's a saying, to the victor goes the spoil. So historically, if we look at this, what we're facing now through a lens of world history, when the Roman Empire ascended to be one of the most powerful universes in its time, when they conquered other people, they changed that history, because when you can change any type of tribes or ethnicities history, you can control it.
Absolutely.
Now, starting at that point to get here to say that we have the benefit of technology. Now, I always say my grandma was a Walter Cronkite fan, so I'm aging myself, but also at that time, as a kid, you only had 3 outlets for news, maybe 5 if you were from the metropolitan area. You had the independent stations. But my point is, you had ABC, NBC, and CBS.
Right.
People adhered to journalistic science, so they were reporting information as fact, generally accepted fact.
Right.
We live in an age now in 2023, right? Where we have over some of us 600 channels of information. And we have channels that are significantly geared toward not news, but opinions that have no benefit of factual backing, validity, or truth. So when we say educate, I like to say educate not from different platforms. I always challenge people in my age group or younger, if you're getting your information from TikTok or Facebook or Instagram, I can't have a conversation with you at an intellectual level. And I'm not trying to be an elitist. Those are just the facts.
Well, wait a minute. So let me throw some out here. I'll throw some out here. So I agree that what we don't do is we don't critically think. Right.
Yeah.
We take that information and we think it's Bible, right? It's what it is, and it's the reality of what's going on. It's the gospel. What we need to do is wherever we're getting information from, we should be really investing time and understanding how truthful it really is. Because you're only going to get part of something, right?
And that's what I hate too. I'm gonna go back to Instagram real quick, because that's a platform where people play short videos, right? So that's the whole. If you think about it, it's a short video, so it's not telling the whole story. It's not providing context. And I hate when people take short clips and then they ask you, "What do you think?" And it's like, wait a second. I know that person. That person is very informational. That person's going to provide context. Stop doing that because you're starting for a whole other month.
Right.
Provide the context so they can actually provide the feedback that they're supposed to. But then it makes everything go left, and that's what I hate.
And I think it goes back to your point on we have to be responsible with information that's being put out there, and we have ownership. We ourselves. Don't put the onus on the person sharing. Own your piece of it, right? So I'm sorry, I get social media again. Many different platforms put little bits of information that we take as gospel, and it's not true.
And let me add to this, because I'm a solution-oriented person. So when we have this dialogue, I'll make suggestions in our dialogue because I think there's some things we can do. See, we can diagnose any problem. You go to a doctor, he'll tell you have a bad heart. But for you to live, you've got to take his advice in order for you to get better. So we're in a situation where misinformation is being flooded intentionally.
Oh, absolutely.
For different reasons. And I'm saying that to say, sometimes you may have to do a purge in your platform with people that are spreading this information, because if you continue to allow that, you're part of the problem.
Absolutely.
That goes to the point of, back in the day, or I don't know, I'm going to say back in the day, I'm not even 50 yet, but back in the day, you'd hear the dumbing down of America. Right, we are here.
We are.
We've been dumbing down America
forever,
for quite some time.
Absolutely.
I mean, and it is because we are not critical thinkers anymore. We are allowing information to be fed to us, and us using that information without thinking.
And when you're not a critical thinker, you can't make logical choices or decisions. It's impossible. Okay, so. You really have to take the time to question everything.
Correct.
Everything, let me just say this. Even when you go to the doctor, okay? Because I don't let the doctor tell me what's going on with my body totally. I tell him so that he can give me an educated diagnosis along with whatever testing to verify that. And then I get on to Google and I do all kinds of research on the condition. How can I deal with the condition? Holistically.
Yes.
So the bottom line here is we have got to start taking, like you said, responsibility for ourselves, our choices, and stop pointing the finger at everybody else. Go ahead, Darren.
No, and I want to bring that around because we pretty much laid out, I think, the basis of the show. Here's what's happened. For years and years and years, people trusted the information that they were given.
Yeah,
years ago, people were trying to move toward a united front to build a more perfect union. And that's coming from the Constitution. But it's been clear, and in my assessment, with the changing demographics of America, there's a contingent of people by any means necessary willing to compromise the democracy that we live in by flooding the zone with misinformation.
Absolutely.
So this dumbing down of America has created sets of people, if you will, because if you want to compromise unity, the best thing you do is create grievance. So if I have a grievance and you have a grievance and you have a grievance, it's impossible for us to unify to move forward as one. You follow me?
Yeah.
So you've got some people that are dumbed down because they just are intellectually lazy. Let's face it, they're going
Yeah.
to look at information and perceive it as fact.
Right.
Some people have tails. Really? Yeah. You know, or, you know, then you have some people that have given up.
Yeah.
You know, when we look
Yes.
at the climate that we live in, I'm from Newark, New Jersey. I tell people this and they don't believe me. I grew up on a tree-lined street where everybody had a job. That's not the case now in the environment I grew up in. But the point I'm making is when we look at what's happening socially with us, among each other,
Mm,
and just in the greater good. There were 9 mass shootings over the past week.
Yeah.
You know, now that could be because of guns, but I would submit to you there's something fundamentally wrong with the way that we are not only lacking in critical thinking, but how we resolve problems.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. You know what? People don't have coping skills.
Right.
Yes.
They don't have
Yes.
coping skills,
Yes.
so they go to the gun
Yeah.
to deal with whatever is going on up here.
Yeah.
Their mindset has been so distorted
Mhm.
by their environment and the experiences that they have gone through, continue to go through, that they don't even look at any other alternative because they don't have the ability to.
And then
Correct.
also
And it's
too,
yeah.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
We're living in a microwave age.
Oh yeah.
Everybody wants everything,
Pretty fast now.
Right.
and people don't understand. You have to curate.
Mhm.
And you have to go into the root. You have to plant. You know what I'm saying? That takes time. You don't
Plant the seed.
just the first sprout. You just don't grab it. You know, and that's applicable to everything. That's
Right.
applicable to relationships. You know, how we build
Everything.
from everything. But
Everything.
it's like, again, we live in this age, and it's like slow your roll. Like, you know, but that's becoming obsolete now.
But that
Absolutely.
goes back to, again, when you talk about the civil rights movement. Okay, now I say ancestors, looking back at the ancestors and everyone that had to deal with, you know, getting the rights that they deserve. This is a human. I mean, come on now. Let's call it basic human rights, right?
Absolutely.
And how they operated in these environments that were set up to destroy and to minimize people's ability to actually live in an environment that was fair and equal for everybody.
And the truth is, inhumanity is winning the race.
Yeah,
Inhumanity is winning the race
because we're allowing it
because
to.
we're allowing
Because
it
we're
to.
allowing it
You
to.
know, we're sitting back and we're just, you know, acting as though it's not going to infect our lives and just affect everything.
And here's where I want to tie it in a bow, and we can get back to the causal factors. These decisions over the past 3 weeks, what the Supreme Court did validate the inhumanity. Again,
Absolutely.
I would just, without getting into facts and figures, just spout out one truth that pretty much is kind of it's consequential. This is the first time, at least in our generation, where the Supreme Court is actually making rulings that take away our freedoms,
Yes.
which was
Yeah.
predicated.
Yes.
The country's inception was based on the pursuit of happiness and
Right.
liberty and
Right.
freedom.
For
You
all.
know?
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
regardless of my personal politics, we're now saying that, you know, the choice of a woman having a child is against the law. When we know that now having a child or bringing a child in the world, if you're single or in a relationship, it's a financial decision.
Right.
Now, granted, you can do things using contraception. That was actually compromised through the evangelical movement, because that was really how, and come for me if you want, sir. I got something for you.
888-304-4401.
But at the end of the day, that was co-opted from an agenda.
I don't care if it's almost 100%. And the contraceptive I was using when I got pregnant with my daughter was inserted and supposed to be 99% foolproof. And I got pregnant.
And that goes back to, again, you know, you're making choices on a woman's body who actually in some cases have tried to protect themselves from doing that. So
Exactly.
but again, you know, it's the weaponizing, it's the going after women, going after people of color, going after LGBTQ. Again, it's going back backwards, right? The 14th Amendment. I mean, again, where are we going? I mean, we're going backwards.
We're going backwards.
We're going backwards. And not for nothing that the Supreme Court, we've talked about term limits. This has been discussed before. Term limits. Where the term limits? Because if you think about who's actually sitting there and residing in those positions.
Well, here's the other thing too. When we talk about just abortion and the logic behind it, you know, again, for those of us that think strategically, we don't just think about today and tomorrow.
Right.
Political science is in fact the science, and most of us on the periphery know that 20 to 30 years from now, America's not going to have the same composition as it does currently.
Right.
You know, when my parents were growing up, they were considered minorities. Well, you looked at being a minority if you looked at it from an Amerocentric view.
Right.
The global majority happen to be people of color.
Right.
Let's not
Right.
get that
Right.
twisted.
Right.
So
Right.
when we go back to
Right.
history, right,
Right.
we call people the African or the European or the Asian. Race is a construct that was created in America.
Right.
So that's where we got a
Right.
lot of us on both sides or all sides of the spectrum confused, because when we started looking at people not just as a human, but as a black or as a white or as a yellow or as a red, that's when we began to implement some of the most draconian laws and actions to justify the expansion of America.
And all we're doing is moving forward. We're actually living in the age of The Walking Dead. If you look at that series, I just finished watching the entire series of 11 years and all of these shows, and there are messages in each one of these segments that if you thought strategically, logically, you saw things that just blew your mind. But the average person looks at The Walking Dead to be
Entertainment.
I'm always
Entertainment.
looking
There's a lot
at
of messaging in The Simpsons too. Have you
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I know that's what was around.
Oh, yeah.
So
Oh, yeah.
If we really
Oh, yeah.
honestly, if we pay attention, they've been showing us. You know, just let's be real. Let's go back to the Jetsons. Almost everything in that show is manifesting.
It's
right now,
manifesting.
except for that
Right,
Brian
right.
Carter.
Exactly.
What
So
about
it's
you
like-
from the Star Trek?
Oh, yeah, too.
Absolutely.
There you go.
Yeah.
So it's
Look,
like
Far back
they
and
already
forth.
know. But here's the thing.
It's the
This,
creators.
Right, this matters as well too.
Mhm.
This is the thing. We already know it takes time for people to change. So you just can't just throw things on people. You gotta slowly
Right.
introduce them to. And that's what they have been doing. Slowly introducing things. And then we come and fight it. Okay, let's change it. But it's the same thing. We're just gonna change it.
Look, these are being think about the creators of every show that's out there, right? There's got to be a level of information, acknowledging science or whatever the case may be, right? And looking at things, even not just historically, but also forward looking,
Yeah.
right?
Absolutely.
And to your point, you know, when you think about these particular shows and things of that nature, messaging is in everything.
Absolutely.
We just have to be in tune and understand that, you know, we have to hear, not just listen, but hear what
Hear.
the messages are. Right?
Absolutely.
Okay,
Absolutely.
so let's look at it through that lens. If we're saying, or the premise in this discussion, at least to this point, is that science fiction has accurately depicted technological advances, the way things work, and the way things will be. We have to look at the actors, the people that are there in that future. Do they look like me? Probably not. So we need to be concerned there.
Yep.
And that's why I want to get us back on point to say, so if science fiction novels or what we're seeing on TV is a predictor of the future, does the recent spate of judgments reflect how we get there? And that should be a red flag for people of color or people that are human, because one thing that I just like to clear up is that, you know, what I consider to be, I'll say, injustices with people of color actually impact us all, because we have allies and we have people that place humanity before race. And we've got to quickly figure that out before we tip the scales. And I was sharing something with Stefania. I have a property manager, and he was upset about the activities that were going on in a major city. I won't get into the specifics, but Now, this was an African American. He said this to me. He says, "Well, I hate to say this, but the only solution is to put everybody together, these young people, and kill them." And I looked at him, and he said something kind of extreme like that today. And I've done business with this guy for 20 to 30 years, and I'm throwing it out there because as a person that has humanity, we can't ever think like that. I'm seriously considering ending my business relationship with him on the basis of that, because when people are willing to think about, ending
measures of
people's
the murder
lives as a means to an end, we're no better than the same climate in the late 30s and early 40s that provided Hitler his ascension to power and some of the negativity and genocidal tendencies that he implemented.
Absolutely.
So we talk about minority and majority, right? This has always been one of those things that keep getting thrown out there. The majority is browning of America. It is the majority. People of color are the majority, and I think the thought process of, you're considered a minority, and I want people to stop thinking themselves as a minority in this country. First of all, we're all human.
Absolutely.
Okay, first and foremost, and that we already know. However, when you start thinking of conceptually thinking of yourself as a minority, you have power. Okay, there's a majority here, and that is people of color, and it goes back to some of the points that Darren was making about it. It was this is the browning of America. There's a threat there, right? Because people are threatened by the fact that America is becoming browner. Okay, this is the reason why these are starting to come to fruition.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Absolutely.
because they want to say, hey, we need to take these rights away before they start taking over.
And think about it.
Let's think about that.
Also think about Planet of the Apes. All from the first episode all the way to the last. It tells you a story, and you got to be able to read it to understand exactly what's going on. Because let me tell you, a lot of people who are creative, they know that they can't come out and say certain things out.
They do it within their creative work.
Within their creative venue.
Right.
So let's tie it together with, again, the subject matter.
Right.
When you think about the browning of America, you can deter that a few ways. Because again, time's up when we look at the political science of it.
Mm-hmm.
So more and more people of different ethnicities are intermarrying.
Right.
Okay, that's number one. So that offspring, that counts as brown. Because years ago, if you had 1/16 of an ounce of African American, you were considered black. When race was determined to be a construct and was to be judged on one's superiority or lack thereof. So that's number one. So now you've got people now, it's not just black and white, but Asian and everything else that are intermarrying in a free society. Because at one point, that was something that we set up to be a more perfect union. There's that term again. Okay. Now you have immigration. Now, what's interesting about immigration that people don't realize is during the expansion of the West, there were homestead acts where people just were given thousands of acres of land for free. Now, had the initial indigenous people of America had the same politics today, we would probably still be a majority of people of color. But they did. And the results were, quite honestly, disastrous. But I digress. But my point is, when you look at the two main methods that are creating a more diverse community in America, these rulings are set to turn them back.
Right.
So if you stop choice, more people in the majority that are trying to progress and build their net worth, they have to have those babies. Well, that's a reason, because someone that's looking at this are saying we have to maintain this majority. When you say stop, all of a sudden, the pursuit of freedom and happiness for all, you stem that tide, because most people are coming from the Caribbean, Latin America,
Mexico. Oh, absolutely.
Keep going.
Okay.
And other areas. So we have to take take that into consideration as well. So that's where we get some of the draconian laws, where we want to limit immigration. At one point, I think one of the first acts that Donald Trump had wanted to implement in 2016 was a Muslim ban. Because again, when we dissect and understand the compositions of Muslims, I have many that are in my family. They're not only African American, they're African, they're Asian, they're from Latin America. So we've had an influx, and dare I say, a shift of how we put the boogeyman. Now, one point I'd like to make is that arguably 15 years ago, the boogeyman was a Middle Eastern terrorist that was hell-bent on coming here to cause death and destruction based on one event, which was September 11th, which, if we take out even the conspiracy theories, we know people had knowledge of. Because what we have to understand in America is that there's this thing called collateral damage. And if we're trying to create a narrative, some of the people in the way are just as expendable. We've shifted fundamentally in that 15 years from the number one domestic terror threat being someone from Al Qaeda or in the cell that we hardly heard anything about now, to Brad in a band that's watching misinformation for some of the extremist rhetoric that's coming directly from leaders of major political parties. There was a gentleman not too far from where we live in the Poconos that was radicalizing, actually did his empirical research, unlike what we try to share in a positive nature. He cycled his empirical nature to find out the highest concentration of African Americans on the Northeast coast and went to Buffalo and had at it.
Yep.
So those are the type of things when we talk about educating, you need to be aware of. You need to get information from responsible sources. You know, again, I made the snarky remark that if you're getting all your news from platforms, that's not a good option. But I just wanted to share news outlets like Reuters, CBS News, PBS, start trying to collate or accrue information, as Kalima was saying, from reputable resources. Because at the end of the day, there is a science of data collection. And without getting into too egg-headedness, when we get into solution mode, I would challenge anybody as you get information, and it's going to be mission critical. And the reason I'm so heck bent on it is because of AI, artificial intelligence. I was just reading something today where now they're having, or the science itself has the ability to mislead if you program it to. So
well, that's how the election, you know, when they were saying the rigged election, that's how that was kind of coming into fruition as well. I mean, so it was there. But you know, again, I think we go back to your point, we have to really take information for what it's worth and go back and make sure that we're educating ourselves on what exactly is being said.
And we're getting the right
and we're getting the right information. You know? We're doing, again, as America, the dumbing down of America means that we're not thinking for ourselves anymore.
Absolutely.
Our ancestors or people who were here before us, they thought for themselves.
Yeah.
They didn't just take people's opinions and information and just say, okay, I'm just going to go with the flow. Whatever they say, let them think for me.
Right.
That's why we ended up with the civil rights movement and all of those after that helped to put, again, and now they're tearing down all these other, you know, again, they were here thinking critically, not this whole dumbing down America thing, because again, it's fast information, quick information, and I'm just going to be lazy about it and just agree with whatever's coming into the network, into my mind.
I also want to add this too, right? Because if you think about it, right, from the standpoint that we're breaking this down, it's coming from the political aspect, right?
Yes.
And one of the biggest things that people focus on is the presidential election, right? People barely pay attention to the locals. And if we want to be honest, that's where everything starts. So if you want change, you really got to go to your locals. And if you want to think about who are these people that's coming in, it goes back to what we said before. There is a platform. I think this is the state website. When people are running for these certain chairs, they will go ahead and put their information up there so you can go there and see. So you can't say, well, I don't know who I'm voting for. You have, I'm going to give you this piece of information so you can know. Go to your state website because they have to put their background, they have to put that while they're running, they have to do all that stuff. You you go out.
And their voting history.
Right.
And this morning I was like, I think every politician should have a psychological evaluation.
That's a whole nother
That's a
Yeah.
whole nother
It is.
story.
That's a
Exactly.
whole different-
Because we have a lot of sociopaths and narcissists
Oh,
who are in political positions. And they're not there for you and I. They're there for themselves because they want to amass a great fortune for themselves and their families, while the rest of us grapple to try and make it from day to day.
And I'm gonna add to this too. Whatever that we're seeking in our community, whoever is that representative or whoever in that area, you need to go to them to complain. I forgot it was a particular issue we was having out here. I can't remember, but I put a hotline on my personal Facebook page and it said how many people called.
Oh, I remember that.
You
When
remember
we were
that?
talking
And
about
I'm like,
yeah,
see,
call
but
your cost to
Right, I
call
said, but
constituents.
they're out
Yep.
here running your mouth, and it goes back to what Darren is saying. I'm solution oriented. Okay, so we have something in place that we can do, but we ain't doing it. Everybody's doing this,
They're running their mouth.
right? And that's why those people are in jail. You hear my voice elevated now? Yeah, I'm getting excited.
Well, let me say this on the tail of that, because we haven't touched upon affirmative action, and I'm going to share at least a point of view that I'm not saying is right, wrong, or indifferent, but this is my understanding / experience with affirmative action. Now, affirmative action, for those of you that don't know, and again, it starts with your level of understanding. If you don't understand what affirmative action was intended to do, you'll always end up in the wrong space.
Right.
Affirmative action was not designed to have less qualified people admitted into either elite institutions or jobs. It was intended to have the same qualifications for people, but have some type of designation for them to have the opportunity. Okay. Now,
opportunity.
I went to an elite high school. I had to take test scores. So at that time, the test scores were unequivocally, and I scored off the charts. Now, I'm sharing that to say when I got there, I didn't want to go there. Now, my dad was an educator, and he said something to me that was prolific. He said, "You're not there to make friends." Now, that's sad, but I understood now what he was saying, because he said, "You're there based on your merit." And he was trying to say, kind of not without saying it, saying the loud part, the quiet part out loud. He was like, "You're going to go there, you're going to have problems." And what I found during that experience was, you know what? There were some dumb people there too. But there was an interesting relationship. The people that weren't there, they knew people, or their parents went there. So that's when I was introduced to the concept of legacy acceptance. Now I'm saying that to say, when things are done legislatively to help people of color, historically there's a backlash. The best example that I could give you was the presidency of Barack Obama for 8 years. Things took a fundamental shift swiftly. So now let me go back to this affirmative action rule. Right now, one of the people that actually advocated repealing affirmative action was a beneficiary of it. My friend, Miss Justice Clarence Thomas from Penn Point, Georgia, who got into Yale through affirmative action through his own admission. But two things happened on his way to dissent, something that helped level the playing field. One, the ability for him to be bought and sold, because his predecessor was one of the greatest jurisprudent African Americans that also was the first justice, Thurgood Marshall. So what tends to happen, and again, I have to look at this through the historical lens, when we get breakthrough people of color in fields of endeavor, when that backlash comes, they typically choose the exact opposite to repeal that. So when we look at everything that Thurgood Marshall did, Board of Education versus Brown, desegregation, ascending to the highest court in the land, when he dies or steps down, actually retired, they pick the lowest person to. Same complexion, not necessarily, but same pride, but to undo everything.
Yeah,
That's a fact.
yeah.
That's a fact. I mean, this guy, Justice Thomas, was once the head of EEOC, Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, where he shot down everything with respect to people that had grievance with being unjustly fired or housing, things of that nature. So we need to understand that that happens. And as I'll say, inclined for people of color, we have a saying, all kinfolk things kinfolk.
That's right. Hello.
So we have to be very cognizant of the people that we interact with. Now,
Absolutely.
with respect to affirmative action, before that was even implemented into the decision making and hiring and acceptance practices in colleges, I, as well as the owner of the station, are legacies of HBCUs, historically Black colleges and universities. Now, at one point, the Secretary of Labor, Betsy DeVoe, told the American audience that those were created as institutions of choice. And that should have gotten anybody with common sense a red light to say, this broad doesn't know what she's talking about. They were actually created out of necessity.
Yes.
Because we didn't have mitigant factors like affirmative action to help lay the playing field. So Mary McLeod Bethune created Bethune-Cookman College. And some of these other places like Florida A&M, Howard University, Tuskegee Institute, North Carolina Central State were created. So my point to the young people, because we were having this conversation off mic, I'm in the third quarter of life. I'm either set or I'm not. You know, I have plans to spend time elsewhere. But this message needs to come to the people that are younger, because the future of the United States is going to be predicated on your action.
Yep.
So for me, it's education, then it's action. I can tell you everything and I can lead you to that water, but if you don't go and register, if you don't go and educate yourself about the platform of what these people are telling you to do, and then more importantly, go to that ballot box and push something that advocates the agenda that benefits you, you have yourself to blame.
Yeah.
See, to me, this is a good time to be in America, because we've had to always navigate the unspoken rules. Now they're just flat out with it. We don't want to serve you. We don't want to let you in our harvest. We don't want to give you a chance. So there's 107 opportunities for people of color with the advent of affirmative action, and they're called HBCUs. You know, I've called personally on the people that I know are legacies. Let's look at ways to do either a few things. One, I call it a book drop, helping people. Like for me, you know, $100 helped me get books. That's one thing. Two, I'm a dink. You know, maybe we need to set up a scholarship fund for somebody that can't get there, so they aren't riddled with unmanageable student debt. You know, all of the Black millionaires that I know personally and know as friends, they came from HBCUs. So I'm saying that we've got to challenge the paradigm that Harvard is the best option that we can aspire to.
Absolutely.
See, that's a fallacy.
It's not.
You know, Yale is Dartmouth, they're good schools, but if they're telling you right now, and it's not necessarily them, it's the affirmative action ruling, because we've got to look at them now and see what their level is. Are they going to challenge the status quo and still diversify their requirements so people that have grievance, again, we can judge every action legislatively through a grievance by the majority currently, so that the playing field can be even. You know, someone has once asked me, you're playing the race card. I said, well, who helped it? It's always coming from the bottom of the deck. And if I got two twos, I got to make sure that I understand how to navigate. Now, as far as the corporate thing, you know, that's the one concern. We've got to start looking at more entrepreneurial aspects. I've been in the corporate game 30 years. And when I started, they couldn't say it, but I could feel it. See, a lot of us manage intuitively as well. We know what's going on.
We know.
And you know what I understood? Hard work and dedication usurp it all. So for these people that are listening, if you're starting your career or if you're in the middle of your career, you got to work harder than folks. And
absolutely.
I hate to say it that way, but if you're going to be successful, you know, working on a Sunday, you may not want to do that. But I'll tell you this as something that's worked for me. When I get in front of somebody, trust you. I understand subject matter knowledge. I know the facts. I know the figures, because outside of work, you can talk that rah-rah about who false election, this, that, and the other. When you're managing somebody's business, you got to be right and correct. You have to come to work prepared.
Absolutely.
You have to be willing to do more than is expected, and without being resentful, have that commitment to make it happen. So,
Absolutely.
you know, we're not victims, and sometimes people like to look at it through that lens. But I just want to tell you, for success, you have to be committed, and you have to be open to feedback, and you have to be willing to make allies. Some people are just transactional individuals that you need to use as a means to an end. I've said a lot, but I hope that resonates to the audience, because we've got to take action.
Oh, absolutely.
Unless we're going to be dinner served.
And that's what, so what you said, that's a mindset right there.
Yeah.
It is.
And it really takes some trusting to get into that mindset. Even right now, like with our youth, like we're trying to get into their heads, and it's like here's this battle again, which is ongoing. They don't want to listen to us. We're trying to teach them, and then they got to learn the hard way, and then it's like certain things.
The cycle just keeps changing.
Going on. But if we can, and like you said, the key thing is really the kids. But we have to find another approach, because how we're doing it right now is not working.
It's not getting through
but that's
them.
one thing about us. We have to always be in that creative space. You can't just say one way, because they're not going to, because they're in a different totally mindset, and they live in a totally new world than we lived in.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So we have to be creative, and we have to go to their level. We can't bring them to ours, because they're not going to even comprehend some of the stuff that we know and that we've been through. So we have to dumb it down and say, what are their bases, and what can we do just to get through to them so they can have that mindset.
See, and I wouldn't actually say dumb it down. What I would say is, to your point, get to their level of understanding, right? So I think again it goes back to educating and how you educate, right? Because again, it depends. Everyone is different on how they see things, or how they view things, or how they internalize things.
Absolutely. And that's one of the things I've always said. You know, when you're trying to teach children, some children are visual.
Yes.
Some children are auditory. Some children are sensory.
Right.
And if you are not able to communicate on those levels, then you're not going to get through to those children.
They're not going to internalize any of that. They're not going to take it in.
Absolutely. They're not going to process it. So you're not going to get anywhere. So you have to understand exactly how that child processes information.
Right.
And try and communicate with them on their level, not our level. You know?
And guess what? And that's why standardized tests in the 70s were inserted in the educational system, because the people that pursue education as an endeavor, you know, for their careers, they knew the different styles of learning. Do you know that different styles of learning was only recently introduced, and it was introduced at the corporate level? See, standardized tests were used to exclude people when you think about it, because if you didn't have a family where people had cups and saucers, you know, the relationship questions that you had to understand context. Well, a lot of times the standardized tests were incorporated based on economic status, socioeconomic status, the way people were learning, and things of that nature. So you always had this dichotomy of verbal versus mathematical scores. A lot of people don't understand that. Well, ways of working learning are different, because, like you said, I might be visual. Some people can hear things and retain them quicker than anything. But then when it's time to convey them, they may have difficulties. That's why standardized tests were implemented, because they were actually found constitutionally to be culturally biased.
Yes.
And people got so angry. What do you mean?
What are you talking about?
You get what I'm saying? So at that time, when we were even saying, hey, something's wrong with the exclusionary process of admission. That was always challenged. So I say that to say, and Mama C brought a really good point. If you're looking at, and it's not just children, it's how we articulate a message. You know, I found, you know, with what I do, sometimes I know what I want to say, but sometimes it's better. I call it a picture in a page, where it has graphics, where it has very small, succinct facts. Many of us have the attention span of a gnat. And if we're going to be effective in conveying a message, we have to change that message. Similar to what Kalina was saying, getting on one's level. I know all these large words, this, that. One time I got in front of someone, and it was someone that was not African American, and they said something that actually hurt my feelings, so I retorted. Because they said, well, you don't have to use those big words. I said, well, if you're trying to invest in your education, don't be ashamed.
That was terrible. Look.
That's your husband, okay? You know him.
I already know him. Sometimes I'm just like, oh, Lord, there, please. And look, we're, and I know we're very close to time, and I feel there's definitely more in this space that we need to get into, because it's not just even about affirmative action and education and things of that nature. Yes, education is definitely a piece of it, because if we really understood and learned and knew what was really going on and educated ourselves, then we'd understand how important it is. Our vote is important, and how we retain information, and how we look for information, and how we, again, learn from all the concepts and all the things that are going on out there. Again, I'll state this again: Roe versus Wade, abortion rights, ending affirmative action, weakening the voting rights. And again, these are all topics that still, I think, there's more behind this that we should be talking about. Giving businesses a license to discriminate. Right now, LGBTQ plus. Guess what? Don't say that it's not going to happen to blacks. Don't say it's not going to happen where they're going to take away the rights of marrying interracial or whatever the case may be. Absolutely. This is already kind of the starting point of pulling things back, right?
It's all about what's to come.
It's what's to come. And that's what I'm saying. If you're not,
is to come.
Exactly.
That's the question. What is this? Because there's something behind it. It's not just it is doing this intent.
No.
There's a nuclear bomb waiting to explode on all of them.
Look,
maybe not physically, but emotionally, psychologically, spiritually, and educationally, in all areas that affect our ability to live healthy, happy, and productive lives.
And to evolve.
And to progress.
How do you do that? Again, you can't do that if these are the things that you're reverting us back on, right? Absolutely. So again, that's why there was the 14th Amendment. That's why there were, again, all these, going into the streets and fighting for our rights and things of that nature. If you think about it, who's not impacted by these decisions? Absolutely. for the majority? Who's not impacted?
And
white men.
Absolutely.
I'm sorry. I'm going to say it. I'm a white woman. You're taking away my rights. Now, I don't need to have a child because I'm not there in childbearing age anymore or whatever. But at the end of the day, I'm a white woman. I have my husband is black. My friends are everybody. Multicultural, I don't care what it is. Again, but everybody around me is affected. Everybody around me is affected.
And those white men who are causing this havoc to take place in this country, eventually they're going to be impacted.
But
they're not going to like what happens because it is not going to be pretty.
Yep.
And that's when people resort to violence. And that's a historical fact. And that's why we have to do that. I'm going to just take the opportunity. I know we're about to close, but I just have using the platform that they were gracious enough to provide me with. I just have one ask from everyone in the audience, regardless of who you are. Register to vote.
Yes.
And here's the thing, really quick, because at the end of the day, your vote matters. The people that have sat idly by irresponsibly and said my vote don't count are more of the reason why we're in the situation we are, because they underestimated the impact of their vote. Mm-hmm. So regardless of what your politics are, exercise your freedoms, because these three issues that we just discussed are small, but more frequent steps to taking them away.
Right. Yeah. It's going to get bigger than this.
So please vote. And at the end of the day, just chew on this. This is more than politics at this point. It's a morality issue as far as I'm concerned, because when we do what's right, we never find our spaces in trying to find out what went wrong.
It's not only a morality issue, it's a human issue.
It's a human issue.
It's both. Right. And we need to decide whether or not we're going to be humane or not. Mm-hmm. And if it's the or not, look out. Woe unto everybody in this country, because it's going to get ugly. It's gonna get terrible.
Right.
Yeah.
And again, this is not to, and it is to kind of scare people into the reality of what it is. Look,
Absolutely.
you know, at the end of the day, when we talk again back to the revolution, is it time for a revolution? Absolutely. And again, this is not about going into the street shooting, blowing stuff up, you know, again, destroying our communities. This is about rebuilding these communities because they're going to get torn down by the decisions that are currently being made.
Absolutely.
It's going to continue to pull back, oppress, and get us to a position where we're going to go back to, again, the 1960s and back, where, again, everybody was fighting to try and get ahead.
And I'm out.
And
What's the solution? I'm getting the hell out the USA.
But you know what I tell everybody? You make sure you have a passport for you and your
ready.
Yes, passport ready.
Already in progress.
Look, I know we're over, and again, I thank everybody for being here today because again, and we could have gone deeper, and there's so much in this space that we could be talking about.
Which means we need to come back.
We need to come back.
I honestly think people need a deep education on what voting does.
Yes.
Don't
I
just
like
tell
that.
me,
Yeah.
just go out there and vote. Okay, why should I go? Lay it out to me so that
I like
really needs to, from now until like the election comes, like we need
Makes
to
sense.
understand it, why it's so imperative and what it does and why, you know, you exercising your right does matter. Like
Absolutely.
It does matter. Yes.
Absolutely.
If not, then we want to
I
keep
know.
doing this.
We got to do it schoolhouse rock style.
Yeah,
So-
schoolhouse
Oh, I like that.
Remember that?
I
I'm
like
Mr.
that.
Bill. We
Yeah,
gotta do it like that.
Yes.
You can't figure it out like that. We're gonna make an idiot.
Come on now. All right, look, we are all as a country, we're smart individuals. Believe me, if we weren't smart, some of the things even in a negative fashion wouldn't be happening.
Wouldn't be happening.
Okay, because
Uh-huh.
this is not about being stupid. This is about, again, trusting and believing in individuals who are supposed to have your best interest in mind. And again, basic human skills, to work with everybody, but they're smart enough to, again, come in slyly and now pretty much overtly now,
Right.
to do the things they're doing. It's not because they're stupid. It's because they think we're stupid.
Exactly.
And here's the bottom line: we're all held accountable for our actions in this life and the next. And if you let people get away with not being held accountable, which many of our leaders are today, that's an indictment on you, your value system, and it'll be passed down. So I think that's where I look at or draw the line, because I have friends that they're very quiet, and I know what their political ideology is, and I don't want to pick a fight with them, because for me, I don't have the time to kind of deal with someone that's not really to face the reality, because a lot of people know that what's going on directionally is wrong, but they've decided to sit on the sideline because they think they're going to be the continued beneficiaries of what happens. But again, as a student of world history, what I would challenge anyone to refute is that the beneficiaries of authoritarian rule have never won. Remember that.
That's right.
And on that note,
yeah, we're gonna come back on this because there's definitely a lot to unpack here. But again, I want to thank DJ Jersey, Darren Johnson. Thank you so much for the brothership. Mama C, love ya.
hey,
Lady K, I miss this crew here, and we're coming back as a fam ship. Okay, with the brothership and the sistership
I like that.
collectively together. Because I think
works.
it's definitely an inspiring conversation. I think, and again, there's so much in this space with all of us coming together. So we'll continue to do that. With that said, I want to thank you all for joining us. By the way, when we talk about unity, and we're talking about, again, coming together as a united front, unity in the community, August 26th. In the park in Stratford, Dansbury Park, and good Lord, I had to start Dansbury Park, August 26th, full day of fun and unity. Again, having everyone come together united. There's so many acts coming in. There's so much. Oh my God, it's just going to be a huge event.
Fun and lots of opportunity to meet, greet, and connect.
Yeah, this was good.
Do not miss it. Gynesis Radio right here, GenesisRadio.com. All of us are going to be there and help support. and be there and invest the time with people. Come to the table. The sistership will be there. We're going to have a table ready for y'all to come and talk with us. So please make sure you're there. There's so many people that are going to be there. With that said, this is your girl, Steph Paya, right here on the Sistership Network. Every Sunday, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, come meet us on the floor here. And again, we're always here for hearing your opinions and your thoughts. 888-304-4401. Every show, lines are open. So do not hesitate in calling in and giving your opinions or your thoughts, because we want to hear from you.
Yeah.
We've got our own opinions.
Yep.
We've got our own thoughts. We've got information, but we want to make sure we're hearing from you as well. So with that said, see y'all next Sunday.
All right.
Right here on the
Take care.
Sistership Network.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay.
All right. Good
That was
conversation.
good. Yeah, we need to have another one.
I mean,
like
this
that.
is not a 1 hour show.
No,
this
you
is
can't.
like
This is
We
like
actually
a
need
5
to
hours,
make
so we
a
need
campaign on how to build